start with Klay Thompson. The talks between Golden State and the four-time champ, they have stalled as the start of free agency looms. That's according to our NBA reporter Kenny Atkinson. And yesterday, GM Mike Dunleavy Jr., he spoke about his approach to the negotiation process with Klay. Take a listen.
I think I'm reasonable, I'm rational. That's how I'm always going to operate. But to say like a guy like Klay Thompson, who's meant so much to this franchise, to completely strip the emotion away from it, I think that's almost impossible. But you know, this is a business, and we'll talk through things. We continue to talk through things, and you know, like I said, we're hopeful, but you know, we'll see. We gotta figure things out.
This is a business. That may be one of the most overused phrases in the NBA, but it is true. We all know that that is true, and it may not be a storybook ending for teams and their foundational pieces, but is there a way that this ends in a best scenario for both parties, the Bay and Klay?
I definitely want to chop it. I think looking at this situation, having played against Klay, having known him and watched how his role has kind of changed, watching the chatter around his name, how he was utilized, essentially bringing him off the bench for a rookie at one point during this year, I think it may be time for both parties to explore other options. I think that's what they're doing right now, to try to figure out what's available and what's out there. And I think from a perspective standpoint, you go from arguably the greatest run the game has ever seen based on what they were doing collectively. Klay was a huge part of that. Threes, defense, hitting big shots, Game 6, Game 7 Klay. And to be treated the way he was treated this last year and a half or so, I think I looked at it as disrespect from the outside looking in, and I think he may have taken it that way as well. And that may be one of the reasons why they're exploring all the options. And sometimes, you know, as a person who had to change scenery, not that this is the same situation, but sometimes change of scenery is great for everybody involved, and that may be something that they're just talking through and just trying to explore.
Good point.
That's really interesting when you think about from the outside, you perceived it, you know, as disrespect. Because if you think about it, I think a lot of the blame for the Warriors' struggles, they finished in 10th. They were in the play-in. A lot of people looked to Klay and his struggles coming back after 2 very difficult injuries and said, he is the reason we're struggling. No, they had more issues than just Klay Thompson, but it feels like everyone attributed it to him at that moment. That made it feel worse, 100 times worse. I do think there's also a point, we all know this, where you have a professional dilemma as an athlete. Do you want to stay in a place where they might relegate your role to coming off of the bench, or do you want to explore a place where you feel like you can still be that guy or that woman, that person out there? And I think that's what's going through his head, because we saw how much better he was coming off of the bench in this circumstance, and we know they want to protect prime Steph, but does he want to do that? Does he have more, you know, juice to squeeze out, and does that mean, does he go elsewhere?
And the Golden State Warriors, as we've talked about, their organization has been synonymous with success over the last decade, 4 championships. He's part of one of the greatest trios ever. But Golden State's focus at this point is singular. It is how can they maximize the end of Steph Curry's career. Let's turn our attention here to OG Anunoby. He has opted out of his contract and into free agency, according to multiple reports. New York went 20-3, remember, with him in the starting lineup during the regular season. So Austin, chop it or drop it, retaining OG Anunoby should be at the top of the Knicks' priority list.
Absolutely, we're going to chop it. Listen, he opted out because that boy's going to get paid. and New York's going to pay him. They have to. They were 20-3 with them.
Yes.
20-3 when he was in the lineup. That's not something to look over. They were dominant when he was in there. He's a Swiss Army knife. He does everything on the floor. He can defend, capable three-point shooter, can guard 1 through 4, and he's just like a Thibodeau guy.
Right.
Hard-nosed, strong. Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, all these guys are hard-nosed two-way players. He fits in perfectly with that team, and I think them fully healthy with Julius Randle back, they are a team, as well as the extra cap space that they have, can go find someone even else in addition to paying him. They could be a really dangerous team next year.
And when you give up quickly RJ Barrett, those are key pieces for them. You want to be able to
bring him back.
OG Anunoby. All right, let's stick in the East here. The Cleveland Cavaliers, they have tapped Kenny Atkinson to be the franchise's next head coach, and now they can turn their focus into fully securing all-star guard Donovan Mitchell on a contract extension. So Chiney, now that we know who the coach is going to be, is Cleveland the best place for Mitchell to contend? Chop it or drop it?
Y'all cool with me dropping it? Because I think they have a lot of questions that they have to address. Donovan, obviously he's the #1 guy, but does he want to be, as someone who has many years in this league, stay there and maybe win, or go somewhere else where he could really be a key piece? And then also, we all know, like, I think it's a great coaching move, but overall, they have some development and they have some time. So let's drop it.
All right, we're going to drop that one for now and save maybe the most consequential player for last here. Paul George, the 9-time All-Star, has until Saturday to decide if he's going to become an unrestricted free agent. The Clippers, they won 65% of their games with PG-13 in the lineup. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes it is. So Austin, chop it or drop it. Paul George should leave Los Angeles.
Chop it. He
Yes.
should. He needs to. He needs to leave. Listen, in my eyes, they've had a decent run there. Definitely that run where they went to the conference finals. But him and Kawhi haven't been able to be healthy at the same time.
Well, they played 68 games in the postseason.
In the postseason where it matters, yeah. It happens every single year.
Yep.
They get to the postseason and one of them goes down. It's like clockwork. It's like we wait for it almost, which has been disappointing just from the fan aspect because we all thought that them together could be a really dangerous team, especially with the addition of James and Norman Powell, a lot of other guys that they have on the team that make them very talented. So at this point, you know, I would look for him to leave, but not just anywhere. I mean, Kawhi's healthy. They say he might play in the USA basketball. So, you know, unless an opportunity really presents himself, I would stay. But, you know, if he can't leave, leave.
Yeah. I'm going to start with this is a business line. I think
Bringing that back again.
financially, it may be in his better interest to stay with respect to who his ownership group is, understanding the complexities of leaving, losing a year and all those things. But he has to decide what matters most to him. Does he want to be in LA? He's from there. I know the family dynamics of being closer to home, what that means. Does he want to continue to play alongside Kawhi and bet on health? Obviously, James probably coming back as well. Does he want to explore living on the East Coast? You know, I've been in New York a little while. It's nice here. It's nice outside of New York and some of the surrounding cities. Does he want to explore that? Does he want to explore seeing what happens with Klay, whether he leaves or stays? So I think he has to kind of figure out what his priorities are and who he wants to kind of play alongside as he gets closer to the latter part of his career.
Can I ask you something? If it's winning, if it's about winning, it would be where? If Paul George wakes up today and goes, I'm making this decision, not lifestyle, not money, I just want to win next year, I want to win a ring.
Go
Where would that
CJ,
be?
and then I'll give you my thought.
To the Bay. Him, Steph, Dre, together.
You like that better than Maxey, him, and Joel?
Well, the health. We talk about health. We talk about the importance of availability.
Correct, because you're
if him and Joel are going to be able to play in the playoffs, that's completely different. But we're looking at history, which has Joel has played, but he's been injured in the playoffs, which has hampered the team and put a lot on Maxey, has put a lot on the rest of the guys to have to play up a role or two, which is, well, we went through the same thing in New Orleans. If your best player gets hurt or close to your best player, everybody has to play up a role, which is sustainable for short periods of time, but not for long periods of time throughout the playoffs.
And I think that is my biggest apprehension because energizing-wise, him going to Philly, it feels like that feels good as a basketball player. Someone that can score off ball. You've got so many different styles between Maxey and Embiid. You just play on that wing. It works out with the size. But you're leaving for something that is the same question mark. Hey, we're never healthy when it matters most. So are the Philadelphia 76ers, which is why you bring up the Bay is pretty intriguing. You sounded very presidential in your answer, by the way.
Yeah, you did. But
very diplomatic.
Two things to consider if you're the Los Angeles Clippers. You're heading into a new arena. You're not going to want to have nothing to show for Paul George and all of this because you want to have butts in seats and a talented team that are going to draw people out there. And the Clippers are right now the oldest team in the NBA. So those are things to consider when you're trying to retool that roster. All right. So while we have to wait to see what roster changes the Lakers are going to make this offseason, their new head coach, JJ Redick, laid out some differences that you can expect to see schematically in his introductory press conference on Monday.
Anthony and I already had a conversation a week ago about some ideas, both offensively and defensively. And, you know, one of the things I brought up with him is just the idea of him as a hub. With LeBron, look, you have to certainly get buy-in and talk to him about how he wants to play. He shot over 40% from three this year. Like, I want him shooting threes. I'm going to use math.
He's going to use math, my worst subject in school. But JJ really made it clear he's going to try and emphasize analytics in Los Angeles. And he said he's going to use Anthony Davis as a hub. But Janae, what does that actually look like on the floor?
Look, JJ and I are sort of spirit animals. We like math, we like analytics. And AD, if you look at this first, I want to take it to the court because I want to show you how he is actually a hub. Watch the intricacies of how he gets the ball. First, there's a pin down for LeBron James. Then there's a handoff. Then there's a slip screen. See where AD started on the outside? This is all to get him on the inside. Where in the postseason, he averaged the most points per game in the paint, 20.8. This is against Jokic, only second to Jokic in post-ups as well over the course of the regular season. So these are the things that I think JJ will mine the game with. Again, see where he starts? This is where they start. Again, another pin down to get LeBron. But what I love about LeBron, because he shoots the ball, as JJ said, so well, people have to guard him downhill and he's able to shovel pass. So those things are going to be the things that I think JJ is going to keep an eye on. And look at these numbers. Second most points in the NBA, trailing only Jokic last season. So you have the keys to the kingdom in AD. You
Right.
also have literally the king in LeBron James. You put those two together, you up the development of the supporting cast.
Right.
I think he has a good, I guess you can say, starting block for his coaching career.
You mentioned his paint scoring. He also averaged 3.5 assists per game last season, the most in a Lakers uniform, with LeBron James being 40 years old. Could the offense be going through him a little bit more so that they could take a load off of LeBron James? What do you expect to see there, Austin?
Yeah, I think they need to up that usage rate. Last year they played the most games that he has, 60 plus games, him and LeBron. They're going to play through him. He's 31 years old. He's not 37. He's still got plenty of juice in that tank. You can play through AD and obviously have LeBron hopefully be healthy come postseason.
That's a good point because LeBron led them in usage. If we see a flip, that shows you that they actually believe to utilize AD for the foreseeable future.
I think it's not about LeBron. It's not about AD. Obviously, they're going to play well. You're going to hope that they play as many games as possible together. It's about the others. What are you getting from Austin Reeves? D'Lo's there. What are you getting from D'Lo? How are you empowering them within the offense? JJ is great at doing math. He's great at understanding the science of shooting threes.
Right.
How are you generating threes? And that's playing inside out. We have to double AD. And I think if you play through him, then you're going to allow others to be open.
That's going to do it for us here on NBA Today.